Hi students, hope you are doing good and learning for the exams. Don't think that you will not have any exams. Understand that sometimes, suddenly, as we had no exams last year, suddenly they may announce exams also. So be ready for anything. Okay? So in our last video class, we discussed about pollination. Mainly the types of pollination, how the pollination occurs, what are the types of pollination, self-pollination and cross-pollination. And in self-pollination again, we discussed some of the types, and in cross-pollination also we discussed so many types. What are the possibilities of cross-pollination? All these things we discussed in our last video. And apart from that, we discussed about embryo, development of embryo set also. My dear students, now in this video you will be learning about the agents of pollination. Agents of pollination. So when we speak about agents of pollination, so the factors which are responsible for the transferring of pollen grains from the male part to the ovule, the female part. So this pollination, so how does this pollination occur? Which takes these pollen grains in cross pollination? So how the pollen grains are transferred to another flower? So all these things we will be discussing in this video, and they are the agents of pollination. So when we speak about agents of pollination, we have abiotic agents and biotic agents. Biotic. Abiotic means non-living. That is, we have wind, water. So some of the flowers are pollinated by wind. So wind carries pollen grains to another flower, to the stigma of another flower. So by wind, and in some cases by water also. So and biotic, if you see, by animals. So animals is the general term, but in animals we have so many sub-classifications also. So when the pollination occurs by wind, that is called as anemophily. If the pollination occurs by wind, it is called as anemophily, and if it occurs by water, that is called as hydrophily. Water, so hydrophily. Same anemometer, you would have learned measurement of wind. So anemophily. And in biotic agent, if the pollination occurs by animals, it is called as zoophily. Zoology, you know, it is study of animals. So zoophily. And in zoophily again there are so many classifications which we will be discussing later. That is, sometimes the animals is the general term, but this pollination may occur by bats or by snails and slugs, or through insects, or sometimes through animals also. So generally we say as zoophily, but in that we have so many types. And entomophily you would have heard. Entomology is the study of insects. Entomophily means it is the pollination occurring by insects. So maximum you would have seen in gardens, some bees or beetles, butterflies, all they fly around the flowers, isn't it? So you would be wondering why it is growing on. Maybe you would have thought that it is just sucking the nectar of the flower. But understand, my dear students, it is for the pollination. For the cross pollination, insects play a major role. So that is what we will be discussing in this chapter. So agents of pollination, abiotic agents and biotic agents. Abiotic agents by wind and water, biotic by animals, zoophily. Now, so let's discuss in detail about anemophily first. In abiotic, we'll discuss about anemophily. Anemophily, pollination occurring by wind. Pollination occurring by wind. And the flowers are called as anemophilous flowers. Anemophilous flowers. So flowers. So how these how it will be? These flowers, this wind pollination occurs where the wind blows. The region where the wind blows, one thing, and wind exposed region, wind exposed pollen grains will be in such a way that wind exposed region. So that is also there. So wind exposed region, it is available. Then second one, it is a chance only. So when the wind blows, the pollination occurs. If the wind doesn't blow, no pollination. So it is a chance event. We cannot predict that this will happen. So it is a chance event. Then third one, may not reach the target. May not reach the target. You imagine the wind blows, the pollen grains from the flower just grows. So it may reach the plant or it may not reach the plant, isn't it? So it is not a target oriented pollination. So may not reach the target flower also. So this can be seen in grasses or we can say sugarcane, maize. In these plants you can see this anemophily, pollination by wind. So how these anemophily flowers will be there? In which type of flower this anemophilous, the wind pollination takes place? If you see, if it is a catkin or spike inflorescence. Catkin or spike, catkin, you know, it's a cluster of flowers. Inflorescence itself, it's a cluster. And there will be no stalk. The flowers are also, it will be very, very small. So if catkin and spike inflorescence, it may be. And if you see, axis of inflorescence elongates. It will be bigger, so that by wind it may jerk and the pollen grains may travel. So the axis of inflorescence elongates. And the perianth will not be there. Perianth will be absent or it will be in reduced form. Perianth will be absent. Perianth is the outer covering. So perianth will not be there. So it is reduced. And the flowers, if you see, they are very, very small. It is not a bigger one. As we see hibiscus or datura, the flowers are very big, isn't it? But in anemophilous flowers, they will be very small. So that is why it is by wind actually. So small and also colorless. Colorless, no scent. That is, fragrance will not be there. Fragrance will not be there. That is why it is not attracted by insects or anything. It is pollinated by wind. And no nectar. No nectar also. So they are small, colorless, no scent and no nectar. And they burst violently in some plants. The pollen anthers, they burst violently so that the pollen grains will reach the stigma. So they burst violent. And can you say how will be the pollen grains? The pollen grains will be large in number. Pollen grains will be large in number. As I said, it is a chance event only. If it has more pollen grains only, at least few can reach the stigma. So pollen grains are large in number. Same way, stigma will be large. So to take the pollen grain, the landing platform, the stigma will be large in such a way that it can take over the pollen grain. So these are the characters of anemophilous flowers. So again, catkin or spike inflorescence, axis of inflorescence elongates, perianth is absent or in reduced form. They are small, colorless, no scent and no nectar. They burst violently and the pollen grain will be large in number, and stigma is large. That identified. Stigma is large, and maximum these pollen grains are produced as stigma everything before the new leaves emerge, before the new leaves come out. Because if the leaves come, that may be hindrance for pollination, isn't it? Therefore, before the leaves come, this male flower, female flower all will develop and pollination occurs. So these are some of the characters of catkin anemophilous flowers. So in catkin inflorescence or spike inflorescence, it takes place. Now let's see how this pollination occurs in maize. Pollination in Z maize, that is maize. So pollination in maize. So you imagine, so I said that maize is a monoecious plant, as we know. It's a monoecious plant. That is, two flowers, male flower and female flower will be present. Both male reproductive part and female reproductive part are not present in the same flower. It will be different flower. But since it is monoecious, male flower and female flower will be present in the same plant. So monoecious, unisexual. Okay. Now, so if you see in a maize plant, at the top terminal end, the male inflorescence is present at the terminal end. That is called as tassel. Okay, male inflorescence. And female inflorescence present laterally. So female inflorescence present laterally, and female inflorescence laterally, it is called as cope. And there will be some hair-like structure present here to receive the stamens, pollen grains. So hair-like structure. You have seen maize, isn't it? How it will be. At the end there will be some hair-like thing, no? That is what. So that is the female inflorescence actually. That is silk, we say. So that the silk, it is somewhat bigger to take the pollen grains. Okay. So now, so this is somewhat heavy. So a light breeze cannot jerk this male inflorescence to produce pollen grains. But a mild wind, it is just makes it, when it shakes the pollen grains from the male inflorescence, it falls, so that this stigma here, the silk, will receive those pollen grains. Okay, so from the male inflorescence, it by wind, so when the wind blows, the pollen grains from the male inflorescence falls on the female inflorescence, where it is received by the cope. So a mild wind shakes it so that it can be received. So here some arrangement, if you see, the female inflorescence has even 23 centimeter tall style, so that even if the leaves are present, the female inflorescence will be more, so that it can receive the pollen grains. So it is arranged like this. So this is the pollination in maize, Z maize. Now let's discuss about hydrophily. Hydrophily, when we speak, it is the pollination occurring by water. Pollination by water. So such flowers are called as hydrophilous. Okay. So these flowers, when you see this hydrophilous flowers, usually they are submerged in water. So you would have learned so many hydrophytes in your 11th standard also. So some are submerged, some are rooted, some will be floating. So this hydrophilous plants, those floral parts are generally reduced, and they have coverings, some mucilage coverings, so that to prevent the wetting of water. You can see plantain leaf or lotus leaf fall. Even water is not will not touch the leaf. So likewise it is arranged. Though there are many aquatic plants, only few plants pollinate by water. Even Eichhornia all, they pollinate by insects only. It is entomophily actually, not hydrophily. So don't think that all aquatic plants will undergo this hydrophily. Okay, so hydrophilous plants in water, as we discussed, there are two types. One is epihydrophily. That is the pollination occurring in water, but in the water surface level. The water surface, no, there it occurs. And another one, hypohydrophily, that is inside the water. So inside the water, all the pollination, everything occurs inside the water itself. So this is hypohydrophily. In Ceratophyllum, we can see this hypohydrophily. Epihydrophily is seen in Vallisneria. Now let's discuss how the pollination occurs in Vallisneria. So Vallisneria is a rooted aquatic plant. Vallisneria, rooted aquatic plants, and it is a dioecious. What is dioecious? Male flower and female flowers are present in different plants. So you imagine that this is the water surface, this is the land. So the Vallisneria, male plant and female plant. Okay, my dear students, just listen carefully. Male plant, the male flowers will be here only. They are attached. Male flowers will be attached here. Okay. So when the male flower matures, it produces anthers, isn't it? So it liberates small florets, anthers, and it floats and reaches the surface of the water. Okay. So the male floral part, it releases the pollen grains, anthers, and they will float in the water. Here in female plant, when it is matured, actually it will be a coiled structure. Okay, so this will uncoil and it just comes to the surface. The female flower comes to the surface. When this anthers, when they reach this female part, then the pollination occurs. Soon this will be coiled and brought down to the water level itself. What is nice mechanism, isn't it? So totally it is brought back to the water itself. It coils again. So it brings back. So now here it is also accidental only. So we cannot say that it will happen. Only this mature anthers, when they reach this floral part, female part, then we can say pollination will occur. If not, the pollination does not occur. So this is in Vallisneria how the pollination occurs. Okay. Now abiotic agents, anemophily and hydrophily we have discussed. The next topic is zoophily. Zoophily, pollination by animals. Pollination by animals. So as I said already that this anemophily, animals means not only very big animals like elephant. Okay, don't think like that. All living animals. So it may include birds, a bat, snails, insects, all come under this zoophily. Okay, so they are said to be zoophilous flowers. So zoophilous flowers. Now first let's discuss. So even larger animals also, this zoophily, it helps in pollination. Even very big rodents, some type of lizards, garden lizards, all they help in pollination. Okay. Now, so first let's discuss about ornithophily. What is ornithology? Ornithology, Birdman of India, Salim Ali, ornithology, isn't it? So study of birds. So ornithophily is pollination by birds. Pollination by birds. Okay. Now you can understand how the flowers will be. You imagine. So a bird has to come and it helps in pollination. So how should be the flower then? Can it be very small? Not possible, isn't it? So it should be bigger. So first one, the ornithophilous flowers should be large in size. Okay, understand. So think logically, so you will know it. It should be large in size. Then the flower should be somewhat tubular or somewhat cup shaped, so that the flower can come and take the nectar, isn't it? So it should be tubular or cup shaped or urn shaped, so that the bird can come, it can use its beak to take the nectar. So it helps in pollination. So the flower should be arranged like that. Same way, it should be brightly colored. Why it should be brightly colored? Because then only the birds can come. The birds will be attracted by the colors. So it is brightly colored. And here no scent. Fragrance will not be there, but nectars will be present. Nectars, that too in large quantity. So the bird helps in pollination, isn't it? In turn, what does the flower give? Some reward should be given. No, when you do very well in the examination, we give you rewards. Likewise, a bird is helping in pollination. So what reward it gives? It gives the nectar. Okay. So nectars are there. It is a reward for the plant. And the floral parts are somewhat tough and leathery to withstand the visitor. When the bird comes and sits, so it should withstand, isn't it? So the floral parts are somewhat tough and leathery. So this is ornithophily, ornithophilous flowers. How the flowers will be present? Larger in size, tubular or cup-shaped or urn-shaped floral parts, brightly colored to attract the birds, no scent, but nectars are present in large quantity. Finally, sixth one, the floral parts are arranged in a tough or leathery structure to withstand the visitor. So it gives nectars as the reward for the birds, which helps in pollination. Okay. Now, so ornithophily we discussed it. Second type is there, Hydrophilic. That is, you buy bats. Pollination occurring by bats. Bats help when they go from a tree to tree or plant to plant. They transfer this pollen grains. That is said to be Hydrophily. Then third one is Malicophily. By slugs or snails. You would be wondering, even snails help in pollination, isn't it? Slugs are shellless snails, we can say. Not snails, shellless mollusk. Okay, mollusca, but no shells. They are called as slugs. When they help in pollination, that is said to be Malicophily. Then next one is Entomophily, which I already discussed earlier. Entomo, insects. So pollination by insects. So they are said to be Entomophily. So insects, when we see bees, honeybees are there, beetles, wasps, butterflies, flies, all they help in pollination. So that is said to be Entomophily. So now let's discuss how the entomophilous flowers will be. So normally when we see this entomophily takes place, isn't it? You would have seen butterflies, bees, insects, wasps, beetles, all they just when there is a flower, you can see a bee there, isn't it? So that's the usual thing. So entomophily takes place in a high level. So how the flowers should be for entomophily? So you can see what type of flowers, maximum all types of flowers, but in case of asteraceae, when you see, asteraceae means sunflower, your chrysanthemum. So those flowers, samandi, sevandi, likewise. So those flowers, sevandi poo, okay, chrysanthemum cinerarifolium, or helianthus sunflower, all in Asteraceae family generally you can see this entomophily. So how the flowers should be? When you see, the flowers should be larger in size. They should be larger in size. That is one thing. And it is densely, it should be, the pollen range, it should be densely arranged like Asteraceae. Large and dense, because it should be bigger, then only the bees can come. Then the flower should attract the bees or insects, isn't it? So for attracting, how it should be? It should be brightly colored. It should be brightly colored. Okay, then only it can be attracted. Then third one, you can see bougainvillea, isn't it? Even all brightly colored plants will undergo entomophily only. So brightly colored. Then third one, fragrance will be there. Fragrance, nice smell. It is scented. Same way, nectars will also be present. Nectar, because this as a reward. Okay, it gives nectar. Okay, and honey bees generally takes this pollen. The totally it takes for a beehive also, preparing beehive. We discussed in pollen bee, we discussed bee pollen in our earlier class. So it gives as a reward actually. So nectar. Then even no nectar means pollen is used as a food for those beehives. Then flies, beetles, all when they come, these flowers will have somewhat foul odor. Some smell will be there to attract the beetles. That is also there. Some juicy cells are present. Okay, juicy cells are also present in these entomophilous flowers. So now it is ready, the brightly colored all, so that the insects come, take the pollen, and so it transfers from this flower to another flower. So the pollination occurs. So this is what entomophily. Let's see how this entomophily occurs in a plant called salvia. Salvia. My dear students, it's a very nice mechanism taking place in salvia. It is a bee pollinated. It is a bee pollinated flower. Okay. So now in salvia, lever mechanism. Lever, you know, nembudole. Somewhat. When you press somewhere, the other side it will come, isn't it? Likewise. It is a protandrous. Protandrous means the stamens and stigma mature at different times. Not at the same time, at different times. We have learned it earlier, protandrous. And it is in salvia, when you see, it is a protandrous and a bifoliate, somewhat like two lips like. Okay, imagine, I'll draw just to see, I'll show you the video clipping also. So this is one and this is another one. Okay, so actually this is sterile, this is fertile. Okay, so two anther lobes, one is sterile and another one is fertile. Stigma will be present exterior itself. Stigma will be present. But when the bee comes inside, listen my dear students, there will be mature anther inside. Here it will be present. Mature anther will be present. Okay. So, mature anther. So, when the bees come in, when it pushes this, when it touches this portion, this anther will come. And the pollen grains, you imagine it as a bee, and the pollen grains will be deposited on the body of the bee. Okay? So, that is what? When it touches here, the anthers come. Okay? So, this is what happens. Now, in some other flower, when it goes, I said that stigma will also be present. So, these pollen grains will be deposited on this stigma. So it is a lever mechanism. When it pushes here only, these anthers will come. If not, it will not come. It is like lips, two lips actually. So when the bees come in, when the bees come, the anther will come out, and the anther, the pollen grains will be deposited on the body of the bee. And when it goes, when it meets some other flower, so because I said that it is a protandrous, isn't it? Therefore, some other flower where stigma is matured, and there this pollen grains will be deposited on the stigma. And in the same flower, the stigma will not be there because it is not matured at that time. Okay, only the pollen is matured in this flower. So two different cases are there. That is why we say as protandrous. So here this takes place in lever mechanism. Also trap mechanism is there. The insect will be trapped inside. So it will be trapped inside. The pollen all will be taken. Then only the flower will open. You imagine how it is, isn't it? So trap mechanism is there. Piston mechanism is there. Even piston mechanism, many mechanisms, but here we will be dealing only with lever mechanisms in salvia. So this is what our pollination, my dear students. So pollination by animals, that too pollination by insects, entomophily, and in the bee we discussed separately. Now let's discuss about the advantages and disadvantages of this pollination.
Other than ornithophily, pollination by birds, chiropterophily, pollination by bats, malacrophily, pollination by snails, we have cantherophily, pollination by beetle, phalanophily, pollination by moths, melitophily, pollination by bees, cytophily, pollination by butterflies, and myrmecophily, pollination by ants. So you should know these types for 1 marks.
Self-pollination. When we speak about self-pollination, the advantages. So if it is a bisexual flower, only self-pollination can occur. So if it is a bisexual flower. And large distance, if the flowers are present in large distance, then there is no chance of cross pollination. So only self pollination will take place. And in the flowers where cross pollination is not possible, self pollination only should take place. But at the same time, when the self pollination takes place, generation after generation, it becomes weaker progeny and no variation is seen. Okay, disadvantages you can say yes, no variation is seen in such cases. So in cross pollination, when you see cross pollination, healthier offspring is formed. Cross pollination. And the second one, new varieties are formed. Since it is crossing two flowers, isn't it? New varieties, variation is seen. Germination capacity is better. Good. And fourth one, the adaptability. The flower adapts itself to the new environment also. So adaptability is seen. These are the advantages of cross pollination. At the same time, disadvantages. Of course, we should wait for some external agents, wind, water, animal, or something. It is like what we cannot predict that it will happen. It may happen only, isn't it? So some external agent is required, and so it is uncertain. We cannot predict that it will happen. And to attract the pollinating agent, the flowers should be in such a way to attract the pollinating agents. That is also a problem here. And significances, generally pollination significances, if you see, it is a prerequisite for fertilization. Fruits and seeds are formed because of this pollination only. So it's a prerequisite for the process of fertilization. Second one, formation of fruits and seeds. And male and female gametes are made together. Okay, they made to contact together by this pollination. So these are some of the significances of pollination. Next time when you see some birds or bees or any insects around the flowers, you think that the pollination takes place. So it is not that just it comes around the flower. It also helps in pollination. So learn well, go through the lesson, understand the concept, study well, learn to lead. Thank you.